Stand back. Hold your hands up. Show me your hands. Show me your hands, please. Come over here. Come over.
Anjem, I am arresting you under Section 41 of the Terrorism Act 2000 as I suspect that you are a terrorist and involved in the commission, preparation and instigation of acts of terrorism.
ويؤمن بالله فقد استمسك بالعروة والكلام بسامر.
And Moscow and New York, all of the country, inshallah, under the thumb of the Muslims, under the authority of the Ummah.
So Anjem Choudary has a long history of radicalising individuals here in the UK, and now we know overseas. So this verdict is really significant for public safety. It means that an individual who's had such a significant impact on vulnerable and younger people in radicalising them towards terrorism is now in custody, and I believe is a sign of sustained public protection as a result. Yes, this case is a really good example of how counter-terrorism policing across the United Kingdom works so closely with our intelligence partners here in the UK, and which of course is something that we do very regularly. But in this case, of course, our law enforcement colleagues both in the US and in Canada. And it's a sign of how healthy our relationships are, that we can collaborate almost in one investigation across international borders and jurisdictions to achieve that sustained public protection. Well, we know that Anjem Chowdary's had involvement with individuals that have committed terrorist attacks here in the UK in the past, but also travelled overseas to join ISIS. So actually disrupting Anjem Choudary and of course his group al-Muhajiroun, a prescribed organisation here under the Terrorism Act in the UK, will help us to manage public safety. But of course, you know, we need to keep a watchful eye on others that are involved in radicalisation. So our work won't stop here, but this is nonetheless a significant milestone. So Section 56 of the Terrorism Act is an offence about directing a terrorist organisation. It's a really significant charge. There have been other charges here in the United Kingdom, but this is the first of those that we've seen convicted. You know, so in the UK we have already seen individuals who, during COVID, for example, radicalised themselves online. Matthew King is a great example of somebody who spent a considerable amount of time online and self-radicalised during that process. But our concern always has to be that the accessibility of individuals who can have a radicalising effect through both encrypted and unencrypted online platforms is really, really concerning. We are working across law enforcement community, both nationally and internationally, with our intelligence partners and of course with social media companies to understand that threat and respond to it. I've had 30 years in policing, 20 in counter-terrorism, and pretty much during most of those years, those 20 years in counter-terrorism, Anjem Choudary has featured in some way in a lot of the work that I've done alongside my colleagues. But look, so he has had that much wider impact than many other people we've seen in terrorism. And it's why that when he was released from prison and became free from his licence conditions in 2021, we didn't stop investigating at that point. We need to continue to monitor people like Anjem Choudary, but in his case, we need to monitor him and work with our transatlantic partners to understand how we can respond to him.
Stand back! Please stand back!
Stand
back! Stand back! Stand back! Stand back, sir! Stand back! Stand back! You didn't get hurt! Stand back! Stand back! Stand back! Hold your hands up! Show me your hands! Show me your hands, please! Come over here! Come over here! Come over here! Come over here! Oh my God! Okay, come and sit down here.
What are you doing?
Come and sit down here. Come and sit down here. Come and sit down here. Have a seat. Have a seat.
Anjem, I am arresting you under Section 41 of the Terrorism Act 2000 as I suspect that you are a terrorist and involved in the commission, preparation and instigation of acts of terrorism. Information has been received that you belong to and are actively involved in the activities of al-Muhajiroun, which is a proscribed organisation within the United Kingdom by virtue of the Terrorism Act 2000. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something which you later mine in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence.
So this is an incredibly significant verdict, not just here in the UK, but overseas as well. A prolific and shameless radicalizer like Anjem Choudary has managed to inspire, influence, and be involved in the radicalization of generations of individuals. Starting now, that won't continue. So this case represents, in many ways, the borderless nature of the threat. It spans agencies, it spans countries, it spans an ocean, multiple oceans in terms of influence. But coming together as partners, it also underscores how seamlessly we work together at the level of federal, international, and local law enforcement over geography and over time. We will absolutely stop at nothing to make sure that dangerous individuals are brought to justice. I am not surprised because we've seen it progress over the years, so we've watched this interconnectedness grow. Really important that this isn't limited to this particular threat. And this case will offer lessons to all of us through our Five Eyes partnership going forward of how to deal with intergenerational radicalization, how to deal with youth offenders, how to deal with amassing evidence in ways that we hadn't before. So there's many lessons to be learned, but meanwhile, huge public safety dividends to be paid.
I dealt with Mr. Choudary in my time in policing, so that was over 10 years ago. So he was the organiser leader of al-Muhajiroun then. He organised one of the protests against the cartoon protest back in about 2005, 2006. So we're going back nearly 20 years. So he's been around that sort of protest scene, that sort of that group for a significant period of time. So fairly significant verdict today. I think it shows the cooperation and collaboration between the security agencies, but also the global reach of groups like al-Muhajiroun. And Mr. Choudary has been a pivotal figure in that group for a significant period of time. It shows the cooperation, the partnership working that goes on between law enforcement agencies across the globe, but the global reach of groups like al-Muhajiroun. Clearly, Mr. Choudary has remained a pivotal figure in that protest group and been a key organiser in all their activities. But I think we've seen the growth of like material online now these days. So people get a lot of their information, a lot of news, a lot of young people get it from the internet, reading posts on social media. And it just shows how the protest groups like al-Muhajiroun reach out, publish their documents, their beliefs, their opinions, and how they can influence people by reading them. There's no counter. It seems to me there's no counter view. There's no balance to it. It's just like one-sided view, perception of society, of different cultures. And that shows how people can be significantly influenced by a group or an individual's views and opinions that are being posted online. The links to those terror attacks that come from individuals that have been watching videos, sermons, preaches, etc., opinions from people within groups like al-Muhajiroun, where Mr. Choudary is a key organiser. And it just shows how the influence they have on some individuals and then the actions they take, terrorist actions they take, and how it influences terrorist actions within the UK, but also across the globe. So this is a key finding of guilt, a key case. It shows how the security agencies are working in partnership and in cooperation to gather the evidence against individuals like Mr. Choudary and prosecute them. I think it just shows how some of the organisers, the main players, the key people in some of these groups are very keen to encourage others to take on actions or activities that maybe they're not willing to do themselves. And that's almost like you can see that across other groups and organisations as well. But I think it just shows, as you said, the type of man he is and how he encourages others to do things that maybe he's not prepared to do himself. No, he's not. I think it just shows the type of work that is going on behind the scenes by the security services to identify these individuals. The difficulty they have is gathering the evidence for cases like these, to prosecute them, to first of all identify who is saying what, where they're posting it, linking it back to an actual individual, and then finding an offence, the offences, the criminal offences they may have contravened, and then actually getting authority to prosecute, taking them to court, and then getting a finding of guilt. So it's quite a challenging process for the law enforcement agencies, and that's why it needs the partnership and cooperation from various agencies across the globe, because it isn't just a UK issue.